Uh,
Mitch, let me ask you this.
yeah.
Dream gig. If you could pick a dream gig to broadcast team and everything city, what would it be? And nothing's impossible.
I don't know that I have necessarily one. I think I've been asked this question before. Like I think for me, it's always been I want to see how far I could go, whether that be a network, whether it be for a specific team. The teams I grew up rooting for, I grew up a big Tech fan. Obviously, I went to Penn State, so those would be my college teams. That's pain, goodness. Capitals, Dallas Cowboys. And then NBA, I've always kind of followed players more than teams anyway. The Wizards were kind of a mess when I was growing up. You had Gilbert Arenas and Javaris Crittenton and all that mess. That's for another day. But that's always kind of been it for me. So getting to do it here in Roanoke was just, I mean, even more bizarre than I could have imagined as far as just what it did for me, not only in my career and growing as a broadcaster, but just as far as someone who looks at this place as my home. It just very wild. But that was more so even rewarding again to talk to people about the game and to hear what they thought about it and what their experience was like going more so than, I loved nailing a big overtime goal call and stuff like that. But you have 58 games in a year. There's going to be a good amount of opportunities to like lock those down versus, a buddy of mine from high school or that plays pool with me or, who's friends of so and so and just hasn't gone to a game before. I mean, there's legitimately people that I knew from outside of hockey that now have season tickets because they went to one game
Yeah.
and they wanted to get a quarter season ticket package just so they could go when they wanted and they wouldn't have to worry about bugging me for tickets, even though I told them that that wouldn't bother me if I had them available. So when you look at Roanoke and Huntsville, Huntsville's done it for so long at this level, and they are as far as just the game show and everything. I think everyone in the SPHL would admit that's who everyone's chasing after. That's the attendance number you're always looking up at.
Yeah.
What they can do as far as the visual show, the arena itself is such a nice venue. There's a lot of ways the corporate side of it that they set the bar. Roanoke, I mean, it's gone from mid threes, 3,000s the first year that I can remember working for the team. So they've been sitting in the mid fives now the last two seasons.
Yeah.
Pensacola, they put a lot of bottoms in seats. Knoxville has been around for 20 plus years now. But you look at those first three teams in attendance, Roanoke, Huntsville, and Pensacola would all be in the top 11 in the
Yeah.
ECHL.
Yeah.
They've all had ECHL hockey before. So they're hockey crazy areas. And it's one of those things where it's just kind of wild that the ECHL expanded the way that it did when it did, where it priced these markets out and it wasn't the right time for Huntsville or Roanoke or someone like that to grow with the ECHL once it became an affiliated league with the NHL. And now they're out drawing over half the teams, if not
Yeah.
two-thirds of the teams in the league above them. And it really goes to show, I think, how this league works in those markets. It's more affordable. It checks all the right boxes. And it's been super special. I would agree with you guys as far as it being so much better than you would anticipate. I think when you
Yeah.
hear like high single A, you're not quite sure. There's definitely the nights where it is, a gong show in a small city near you. There's 200
Mhm.
minutes. Guys kind of beating the crud out of each other. There's all these guys that have Division One or
Yeah.
ECHL. There's even been some AHL experience guys, guys that played over in Europe. There's so many more good hockey players to pick from today than there were maybe in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And not to say that the game is tremendously better. There's just more. There's a bigger talent pool, and there's
Yeah.
more
There's a bigger funnel
athletes
now.
that
Yeah.
grew up and that are playing right now that grew up the last 10, 15, 20 years playing hockey than the guys that grew up in the 70s and 80s that were trying to play into the 90s.
Yeah.
Uh, I think
Jacob.
that's what works so well for some of these markets in the SPHL as far as the price point and what the product actually is at that price point
Yeah.
is so much better than you could even hope for.
Yeah. Murph, do you remember what I told you about Mitch the first time I heard him when I said, "Well, I'm going to like this guy"? Do you remember
About about
and
the
it was?
dog race.
Yeah, I heard him calling the Wiener Dog race like
Yeah.
it was the final game in the NHL playoffs, and I said, "Yeah, this kid's gonna be all right,"
That's the
because that
actual
was
answer to
something
your
we did.
question. That's the actual
What's that?
answer. I'm waiting
It-
for like the NASCAR version of Wiener Dog Racing.
yeah.
I'm waiting for that
Dude,
call.
that was so funny. Like Jacob, I kid him because he always gets excited about the Coke can race. One of those things did over 2 million views on our YouTube channel. I mean, it was
Yeah. My most viewed
hilarious.
clip is called the Coke Can Race. It's not, and you know, it's funny. The comments on that YouTube are like, "Oh, these guys are corporate shills, and they're feeding
Yeah.
poison and all this other stuff." I'm like, whatever.
We need the sponsorship now. If
Yeah,
they're
no,
gonna
they
accuse
didn't
you
even
of it.
accept the collab. They sent the collab to like Coke and Coke Zero, Diet Coke, no collab. But yeah, I mean, to kind of sum up everything that's been said here, I've just been impressed with the SPHL. Like I said, it was a. I grew up going to Lightning games. We used to have season tickets. I loved the Tampa Bay Lightning more than anything sports wise I could ever love. I cried when they lost round one, getting swept in the playoffs to Montreal, game 7 against Boston. When Stamkos got hit in the face, came back with the cage. Game 7 against Pittsburgh, when Stamkos came back, he was hurt. He had this thing with his heart or something. Jonathan Drouin wasn't offsides. All these things with the Lightning that have haunted me forever. But I haven't even been able to watch a Lightning game because I've been so dialed into the SPHL, and it was something that I never even knew existed. And I've kind of said it on other programs or whatever you want to call it, but I just have so much respect for all the guys that lace it up, because these are guys that are not getting NHL money, and they're getting the the living life beat out of them some nights, and they're warriors. I mean, they're fearless, they're warriors, they're talented, and that's another thing too. I mean, I'll touch on very fast, but that's why I think Guy and I call a neutral game, is because we didn't grow up with this league, and we just have so much respect for all these guys, and I want to give a good call for anybody that's lacing them up, because man, the guts, the passion, the heart, the glory to go out on that ice and know you're going to get absolutely lit up, and the ref's not going to call it, and it doesn't matter. I mean, and you're going to get $20 a game basically. I'm just so amazed by these players, and then the skill on top of that. I mean, it is hockey at its best form of love and pure and passion for the sport. So I'll wrap it up with that.
Well, and to piggyback off of that too, the the accessibility
Mm-hmm.
and how down to earth these guys are. I mean, again, to be able to put
Yeah.
your body on the line, and you'll see these career guys that stay somewhere 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Maybe they end up there after they're done playing hockey because they become friends with a corporate sponsor of the team. And then all of a sudden they have a career path when they hang up the skates, or they go into coaching in the area, or something of that nature. There's so many examples of that throughout the
Mm-hmm.
years with the SPHL, and that's my other favorite part of it too. Is you get to know those guys that are willing to put it on the line, and they're willing to stay after and do the post game skates after a wild 3 game, 3-and-3 weekend where their bodies are just falling apart, basically, or they're right there at the Booster Club event on Monday after they get back from a long road trip and they've spent hours on the bus and whatever it might be. But that's something that I feel very fortunate to have spent that time on the road with them and building those friendships and relationships, because those are lifelong friends now. I was at Nick DeVito's wedding back in May. Now an assistant coach for the Dogs, but a very integral part to that team that won the President's Cup for Roanoke. And a lot of the guys from that Cup team were in attendance, and you keep those relationships far beyond that 22-23 season or any season that you pull out, of your files, of years broadcasted or games called or whatever it might be. It's a lot more than just the stats on the website, or the demo reels that we might throw up on YouTube or on Facebook or whatever it might be. So, yeah, it's very, very unique. It may not be quite the level of showmanship that you might see in the NHL or even the AHL, but there's a much more personable, relatable part of the SPHL that I think that if you go to a game, whether you're a hockey fan or not, you go once or you go twice, and all of a sudden you know a lot of people that get hooked very quickly.
Well, I